There's been a lot of banter that I haven't been there for you guys on. Keon and Asante, trade rumors. But I've been managing my girls' hunger the way Falcons fans need to manage their expectations of the draft.
Dad, what's for dinner?
Come by, hop into the bird bath and wash your stinking ass. So Falcons fans are mad that Matt Ryan is going to coach up Michael Penix. And Kyle Pitts recently told us on Cam Newton's show why he had some of the struggles he's been having. But first, I'd like to tell you guys who I'd like to see the Falcons select in the NFL draft coming up. And it's not the sexy pick you think it is. His name is Walter Nolan. But before we get into it, if you guys like the content we've been dropping, hit that like and subscribe button below. Small thing for you, but huge for us. Now, I know that everybody wants to see us go UGA with Michael Williams, but I think a safer pick is actually Walter Nolan. He's probably the most complete defensive player in this draft in the front seven right now. And I'm going to read you a quote from one of the NFL scouts around the league. Nobody questions how talented he is and how hard he plays. Super twitched up and really explosive. NFC National Scout. At 6'4", 301 pounds, I think that Walter Nolan could be exactly what we need in our front seven. Again, a lot of Falcons fans want to see us specifically go with Michael Williams and Jalen Walker. And while both of those guys are players that I think that are going to be really good talents in the NFL, I think the edge players are a lot harder to evaluate than interior defensive linemen. And if you look at the tape on Walter Nolan, this guy can do it all. You can move him all around the formation. He has really good bend to his hips. He gets off of blocks and he can recover really good. Excellent footwork, really good at the point of attack, being able to stymie guards, and he can get around offensive tackles. At the end of the day, he's a 3 or 4 down player, and that's kind of what you need with the way that I think that Jeff Ulbrich is going to go with this defense moving forward. I think that they want to have defensive linemen up front that can play all 4 downs, that they can put their hand in the dirt and be able to play 2-gap responsibility and be able to make plays still.
Notice here with the resistance on how he's able to explode, keep his feet active, lock out, and peek through his gap, then violently shed across to be able to get into the other gap.
And Walter Nolan is definitely a bona fide playmaker. He's probably the best pass rushing defensive interior lineman that there is in this draft. He had 6.5 sacks last year, and he did that in 10, 13 games? We didn't have a player that got over 6.5 sacks last year in 17 games. And I mean, he's done it against big boy competition. The SEC is as big boy as you can get with having interior linemen. He can actually dip his shoulder, he can use his slim move. The one thing that I worry about with him is if he can actually give you a good counter move. But all through and through, this guy is a high motor player. He's one of those guys that will just keep coming play after play. Real mean, real nasty, aggressive with his hands. It's a matter of who's gonna get tired first, him or your offensive lineman. And trust me when I tell you, I don't think it's gonna be him. And reportedly, he's one of those really team-oriented guys that's really community-driven, does all the right things. He's out there at youth camps, really wants to get involved in community outreach, and we know the Falcons love those type of guys. But more importantly, I think he backs it up on the field. Now, last year, I actually wanted to see the Falcons go with Johnny, or Josiah Newton, as he's better known as, and Washington actually picked him. He actually had a pretty good season last year. This kid is probably better than him. He's actually shot up the draft boards a bit, and the reason why I would take him over Michael Williams, or maybe even a Mike Green, for example, is because we know that this guy can play down in the trenches. When we look at Jelon Walker, even though I love him and I love the way he plays, he's a little light in the ass, and I'm not sure he's going to be able to be a 4-down edge rusher. I know everybody's real hot on Mike Green, but in my personal opinion, I think he can have a good career, but I'm a little bit weary on going for a guy that went down from Vatech playing in ACC and dropped down a conference going over to Marshall in order to get his stats up. And I'm not saying he did that in order to get his stats up, but we saw an increase of his production once he went down in competition. Now, a lot of people point at the game that he had against Ohio State, and he definitely balled out. When you look at Mike Green, there's a lot to like on camera. He knows how to transfer speed into power. He knows how to really attack those offensive linemen, and he does have some strength. He's a little bit stout against the run. He does get washed out sometimes, but he's not just a pushover. And he's a guy that has multiple 3 and 4 combination moves. He's got a nice wicked spin move. He's real good with his rip and his dip, and he's got a lot of bend to his hips as well too. But a defensive tackle, interior lineman that can bend his hips almost like a defensive edge player, and a guy that you could play as an edge guy on early downs, move him around in the interior on the later downs. Like maybe say a Richard Seymour. And I'm not saying that he is that great of a player yet, but I think that you have a player who can do those type of things. And in today's NFL, teams are running nickel packages more than 50% of the time, sometimes even 60% of the time. That is kind of your de facto base personnel that you're going to be running most of the time because teams are running so much 3 and 4 receiver sets. I think that having a guy like this can actually allow you to do what you need to do. Be stout up front. This guy's very nimble on his feet. So He actually is a guy that they moved around a lot last year, and he prefers to be moved around. He says that actually helps his game out a lot more. According to his own coaching staff, he couldn't block him. He stopped scheming up ways to block him in practice and just would read him as opposed to trying to actually block him. And they liken that a lot to Ndamukong Suh. At number 15, I wouldn't be surprised if the Falcons traded back. I actually saw one mock draft that had the Falcons trading back and actually drafting Walter Nolan at 39. Now, in my humble opinion, I don't think that Nolan's going to be available past the first round. I don't think he's going to make it out of the top 15. Now, I could be wrong because, again, I thought that Johnny Newton was a guy that was going to be a top 15, top 20 player last year, picked in the draft, and he wasn't. He was picked toward the end of the first round, maybe at the top of the second round. But, again, very impactful, and I think that he's going to be even better for us than Ruka Roro has been. He's a guy that's lived up to all this hype. He was the #1 player in the country when he was recruited coming out of high school. Look at him now. He's a first-round draft pick. So he knows how to play with pressure. And moving on to our next 2 points. I'm going to keep this real quick. Now, one thing that I've seen a lot of Falcons fans being upset about is the fact that Matt Ryan is actually coming back to kind of mentor and help coach up Michael Penix a little bit. And they're like, oh, what is Matt Ryan going to teach him? Matt Ryan was terrible as a Falcon. Let me tell you guys something. Matt Ryan was the best quarterback the Falcons has ever seen. And he's actually a guy that won him an MVP. I don't know if you guys realize this, but quarterback might be the hardest position to play in all of sports, outside of maybe being a pitcher in baseball. Matt Ryan is better at his job than some of you guys are at your job, at your regular 9 to 5. And you do mediocre tasks, and you will definitely take training from somebody who's just a little bit better than your mediocre ass is. So, let's be a little bit more respectful. I think Matt Ryan can definitely show Michael Penix some things about being able to be a professional quarterback and to show him a little thing or two about being able to have some longevity in the league. You look at a guy who's played more than 10 years in the NFL at quarterback and played at an extremely high level, made multiple Pro Bowls, been an All-Pro before, actually went to the Super Bowl, got him an MVP. If Matt Ryan weren't playing in an era where he played with Brett Favre, Drew Brees, Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, also Aaron Rodgers. We're talking right there some of the greatest quarterbacks to ever play in one collective era. Probably not an era that's been as good since we've seen maybe John Elway and Steve Young and Montana and some of those guys with Dan Marino as well. So if he's not a guy that plays in that era, we're probably talking about a guy that's a lock for the Hall of Fame. So I definitely feel as though Matt Ryan can actually show him a thing or two. And on top of that, I think that Matt Ryan was a smart student of the game, a guy who actually realized his physical limitations. I think that Matt Ryan can look at a guy like Michael Penix Jr. and say, hey, you're a lot more gifted and athletically talented than I was at a quarterback position. I think that Penix already has some of the cerebral things you would want out of a quarterback. He's definitely got that short conscious where he doesn't remember the last play. He doesn't remember that he just made a mistake. So he's one of those guys that I think when the pressure is on the line, he's not going to fold. And that's the thing that I think Matt Ryan may have had a little bit of trouble with because he knew that his athletic ability wouldn't allow him to make certain throws. I think he could definitely show Michael Penix some of the pitfalls of the league and show him how to be able to have a long career and show him some things that he needs to worry about being tricked with on defense. As good of a quarterback as these young guys can be sometimes, there's definitely some things and some wrinkles that they can throw at you as a quarterback, even for veteran quarterbacks where they kind of get those guys sometimes. There's this footage out that I'm not sure everybody's seen, but it's Tom Brady with Bill Belichick, and Belichick is coaching him up and showing him about Ed Reed, telling him tendencies on the game.
He lined up on the weak side of the formation, and on the snap of the ball, he turned and ran to the middle of the field like he was going to play in the middle of the field. And of course, Manning read that and came back and threw the go back to the X. And Reed knew that when he went to the middle of the field that Peyton would come back to the X. So he ran to the middle of the field, but without even looking at the quarterback, he just turned and wheeled before he got to the hash mark and just knew that was going to be the play and ran over the sideline.
Julian on the inside, because Ed's going to be driving.
Yep.
And then when you break back out high to the flag, if that corner starts running high for the backside post, then you can throw the flag too.
Oh, you're saying let Ed dive on it and then bring it back out?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Let Ed take it, and then when Ed takes it,
this is one of those things that no matter how much game tape you see, freakish athletes do things that you wouldn't even see conventionally being coached that other players can't, actually emulate or do. You can't coach speed. You can't coach instincts. And I think that Matt Ryan could be very integral in trying to give these type of lessons to a player like Michael Penix. And again, just showing him how he can increase the longevity of his career. So anytime you take a guy who's played as a starter in the NFL for one team at 10 seasons or better, I think he has a lot to offer a player, especially a guy who won Rookie of the Year. Recently on Cam Newton's 4th and 10, Kyle Pitts actually went on there and talked a little bit about some of his troubles he's had at the quarterback position. I don't think that people realize how hard it is for rookies in this league and young players to develop a little bit, especially at a position like tight end. It's a little bit more than just catching passes. When you're going into the offseason and coming into the new season with a guy that you didn't play with previously, it's really hard to build chemistry. These guys don't just go out here and know where players are. A lot of quarterbacks use a lot of timing in the NFL. Matt Ryan was one of those guys that used timing. Peyton Manning was a guy that used a lot of timing in his routes. I think it's a huge thing that he's being able to go into this season with a quarterback that he ended the season with. As Cam said, also, young quarterbacks need to be able to lean on that tight end. It's no secret that they say a tight end is a quarterback's best friend aside from the running game. And again, to his credit, some of the quarterbacks he's had has been Marcus Mariota, Desmond Ridder. Neither one of those guys are in the league. Having that many changes at quarterback and then having that much of a change in how they're going to use you as a player and what the philosophy of the team is, that can't be the easiest thing in the world. And then on top of that, they're asking him to play multiple positions. Now, as he said, a lot of people who have never played the game don't understand how much more different it is for you to play tight end than it is for you to play wide receiver. They've been asking him to play both and learn both route trees. And a lot of fans don't really understand that playing tight end isn't all about route precision. It's about finding open gaps in the defense. Whereas if you're playing out there on the flanked out wide as a wide receiver, it's more about your routes, your timing, how good your footwork is. And I don't think that, Kyle Pitts has that type of short area quickness to do that type of stuff. He's a really big target at tight end, but he's not a big wide receiver, as they like to say. He really is a tight end that's just a bona fide receiving tight end. So it should be very interesting to see what they do this year coming up with him. Guys, that's our show for today. As I said earlier, if you like what we're doing, hit that like and subscribe button. It's a small thing for you, but huge for us. CMO, Falcons Bird Bath, Point Game Official, checking out, baby. Peace.